Hi all, and good morning, and welcome to today's event. As you know, it's a follow-on from the event we did last week with Aidan van der Veer. This time we are very privileged to have James Palmer, who's the Conservative candidate for mayor, and also, of course, the existing mayor for the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority. So we'll get a good chance, hopefully, to listen to what James has got to say about his plans for the next 4 years and also about the last 4 years. And then after that, a chance for you to submit questions. So just a little bit of admin, first of all. If you want to get onto full screen, if you look at where the arrow is on the screen, you can see at the moment, just click on that button and that's full screen. And then also, if you want to submit questions, you can see again, that's the button you need to press. It's a speech bubble with a question mark in it, and you can submit questions, and then we'll put as many of the questions that you put forward through to James, but we will be finishing as close to 11 o'clock as we can, obviously, because being respectful of James's time. So just a little bit of history before I let James start. Obviously, James has got a long record of service to Cambridgeshire. He was a Cambridgeshire County Councillor when I was a county councillor, and my time as leader. He was also leader of East Cambs for a long time, and then was selected as the Conservative candidate for mayor. A long time ago that Hastings was, James, and has served as the mayor since the election 5 years ago.
Cool. 2017.
Yeah. And we now have obviously the campaign about to kick off in anger for the election on May the 6th. So James, over to you, and let's for 15-20 minutes, as long as you want.
Okay, well, thank you, Martin, and thank you very much, everybody, for joining us this morning. It's as I said, it's 4 years now since I began campaigning to become mayor in 2017 in what was a brand new role and a new way of government finding to invest into our area. And clearly it gave what I thought was massive opportunities for Cambridgeshire to do things that they'd struggled to do, that we'd struggled to get over the line over the course of the previous 15, 20, 30 years. And my frustrations that lack of investment into our county and into East Anglia as a whole, I think was shared by many people who lived here and who have lived here for multiple years. We always seem to be at the bottom of the pile when it came to investment from national government. But they put together a deal with us, which initially was £600 million over 30 years. And since the election, have continued to invest into this county. We're now around £1.2 billion investment from government into Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. And that has allowed us to bring forward transformational projects, none more so really than the University of Peterborough, something that had been talked about for many, many years and had failed to get off the ground significantly. There've been some attempts, but nothing substantial. We've put forward, Combined Authorities put forward £25 million investment into phase 1. Phase 2 has been funded jointly by government and by the local business community. And we will be looking in the next 4 years to deliver phase 3 and phase 4. But the most important thing about the university is that what we're trying to achieve in Peterborough also links into what we're trying to do across the whole of the county. Certainly the university is going to be a technical university. It's going to be the first of its kind in the UK, a jobs-based university. It's going to offer courses that support the local economy. And that's most important, we feel, and that's done on the basis of evidence carried out by Dame Kate Barker and her team of independent economic advisors when they put together the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Independent Economic Review. And that told us very clearly that we had an educational attainment back in the north of Cambridgeshire. So we've done a couple of things to help that problem, which is A, the university, of course, but in the short term, we've transformed the adult education budget to make sure that there is more investment going into those areas with greater need. And that has seen transformational change for hundreds and thousands of people who have been able to get on courses, some as simple as just learning to speak English, others retraining within their career to give them better opportunities to take advantage of the delights that the Cambridgeshire economy has. Equally, around that education, we have the links between growth, education, housing, and the economy. And we've had a problem in the county for as long as I can remember, probably as long as the county's been there, where the wealth has been concentrated around the southern half of Cambridgeshire, and the northern half of Cambridgeshire has not been linked appropriately in. And that creates problems. If you have a housing situation around Cambridge, which means it's unaffordable for ordinary working people to live in and around the city, you create a migration, and that migration can only be east or north, because anything south is going to take you into London territory. And that's exactly what's happened, and the public transport has not been able to keep up with the amount of people that have travelled north away from Cambridge. So solutions necessary, not just to link the north to the south, but to solve the housing crisis in the south of Cambridgeshire. And that's why Cam Metro has been put forward as a clear solution. And the ambition of Cam Metro, I don't apologise for. It's to make sure that we create a platform for sustainable growth for the next 100, 150 years. And Cam Metro will absolutely do that. It will bring communities closer together. It will mean that people can travel safely and quickly across the county of Cambridgeshire, and it will be delivering public transport that you would expect in a city of 1 million people plus in a rural county, and that's internationally groundbreaking. And again, I make no apology for that ambition, because I've seen Cambridgeshire undersold and undercooked by half-baked and half-hearted schemes over many, many years. I don't intend to be a person who puts forward something that's not up to standard, up to scratch. And we are almost unique in the UK. The economy in Cambridgeshire is so strong that it gives us the ability to self-fund on major schemes. And I would be the only mayor going to the Treasury and saying, look, we want to build this scheme. It's going to be £4 or £5 billion, but we would believe we can raise the majority of that from the strength of the economy. And we have the policies to do so through tax incremental funding and land value capture. So yes, the Metro is about linking the universities to the current science park, and linking the science parks to each other, which they aren't at the moment, but also linking them into not just current housing areas, but areas of new housing as well. And for many years, the housing policies nationally have been short-term, next field developments, which have created anger, I believe, amongst the individuals who live in this country, that the places where they've bought houses in have been continually spoiled in many cases by poor planning as a result of the local plan system. I believe very strongly that new towns are the best way to deliver sustainable ecological housing and also to protect our current villages and towns from overdevelopment. And clearly, alongside that, those people who live in the current villages and towns need to have the assurance that they will benefit from any public transport solution that we bring forward, and that's exactly what we will do through the Metro system. And we would link that Metro system into a franchised bus service, allowing the bus service to feed the Metro rather than being competition with it. Is it expensive in the great scheme of things? 19 miles of upgrade of the A14 was £1.4 billion. What we're suggesting at this moment in time is around 140 miles of dedicated Metro route, and clearly for £4 billion or so, yes, it's a lot of money, but it's cheaper than dualling the road network and more environmentally sustainable than dualling the road network across the whole of Cambridgeshire. Equally, we begin that levelling up. It's a government phrase, isn't it? We're going to level up. But you can't level up if you don't invest into education, if you don't invest into infrastructure, if you don't invest into job creation. It is not acceptable that if you live in the north of Cambridgeshire, your life expectancy is 10 years less than people who live in the south of Cambridgeshire. I live 31 miles from Wisbeach. It takes me an hour and 15 minutes to drive it, and there's no traffic on the roads. That's not an acceptable situation. There is nowhere in Cambridgeshire that is remote, but there is a hell of a lot of Cambridgeshire that is badly connected. And it's my job to make sure that we solve those problems. We have had, of course, already initial successes into project. Martin, I know, campaigned for as long as I've known him on Kingside Crossing in Whittlesea, and we're very pleased to put in 80% of the funding of the Combined Authority into that scheme, and that scheme is up and running, up and being built now. Diggers are on the ground, and it's ongoing. And I'm sure, I hope Martin smiles every time he drives past it, but I hope he'll smile a lot more when he's driving over it. We have the spades are in the ground already. The diggers are working on the first phase of the university in Peterborough. Salem Railway Station will open in October, and the first trains will stop there due to timetable restrictions in December of this year. Some other road network issues we've already dealt with, some around Ely and others in the county, and also probably our biggest, I think, and most important project of all, which is to find a way for young people to get involved or get themselves on the housing ladder. And our scheme, my scheme, the 100k home, is, I think, the most innovative and exciting scheme for housing in the country. I probably would say that, but let me just explain what it does. It's a home, a one-bedroom home for £100,000. It means that anybody who is earning over £18,000 a year can buy their own house. It's £100,000 whether it's being built in the centre of Cambridge or whether we build it in the centre of Wisbech. That's the cost. A repayment mortgage on a 100k home is less than social rent. All the homes are covenanted through the Combined Authority, so you cannot buy them to speculate. You cannot buy them to rent out to somebody else, and you cannot buy them and sell them on a higher price. Every single 100k home that is sold at the same discount to market price that it was bought. I'll give you an example. The homes that we've built in Fordham are being sold for £100,000. Then their market value has been put forward at £155,000. So they have been bought at a 35% to market discount. The 8 that have been sold there. When the current owners sell them on, they will be sold on again at a 35% discount to the market value, which means that there will always be 100k homes or the equivalent of available for young people to start their working life or their house ownership without having to rely on mum and dad or grandparents to chip in the money, because clearly not everybody's in the fortunate situation where their parents can pay their deposit. And we have to make sure that home ownership is for all. Is it a popular policy? Well, for 8 homes in Fordham, a village of 2,500 people, we had 160 eligible applicants to buy one of these houses. That's, if we take those numbers across the whole of Cambridgeshire, and I don't see any reason why Fordham, a relatively small village 15 to 20 miles from Cambridge, is particularly different from any other, it would mean that we have a housing deficit. People who want houses of that type, young people who want to get on the housing market, of 20,000 homes across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. And it's the first time really that the young people, or those people who want houses, have been able to speak. We always know when it comes to housing delivery, there's a lot of antis, usually people who already have houses, but those who do not have houses are mute. They are not able to put their name forward. Although we've not really been able to launch the 100k home scheme with the fireworks that we expected because of COVID. We had a parliamentary launch planned. We still have over 2,000 people signed up to the scheme as it speaks. And wherever we build these houses, we're currently building them in Abingdon in South Cambridgeshire. We're currently building some in Cambridge City. Wherever we're building these houses, I expect there to be massive amounts of people who want to buy them. So I hope you're getting a sense that we are investing in infrastructure, we're investing in education, we're investing in housing, we're trying to do things different. Finally, I'll talk about business support. The Combined Authority took over the LEP in 2018, and we took on all of its staff. It was an issue because the government had pulled the plug on funding for the LEP, and we had to completely launch it and rebrand it and completely take over the governance of it. It had a problem in the past. We successfully done that. Government turned back on the funding tap, and this year we've invested £55 million into Cambridgeshire and Peterborough through that LEP funding. We also put out a COVID response grant, knowing that there were businesses that were falling between the lines back in the spring, and we invested £6 million into small businesses, small grants, maximum of 100,000, some as low as 5,000 or less, into small businesses to help them with capital grants and opportunities to grow their business. And I've had the privilege to visit a significant number of those businesses, not as many as I would hope because of lockdown, but the confidence of those businesses that they are going to bounce out of this horrible situation is infectious. So that investment at the time created over 240 jobs in the teeth of lockdown one. It also saved, but certainly protected 560. So almost 1,000 jobs in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough were directly affected by that investment of money. And it shows how important the link can be between local government, combined authority, and business community. And I think that that's something that I would like to invest a lot more effort and time in over the course of the next 4 years. And I think it's going to be significantly important. Our numbers are saying that we will probably be around 20,000 jobs lost in the COVID pandemic. And although Cambridgeshire and Peterborough creates around 8,000 to 9,000 jobs per annum, clearly it's going to take a lot of intervention, I believe, business support to help create those jobs and get people retrained and get people re-energised and back into work. And I think the policies that we have in place through the university, through adult education, through home ownership, through infrastructure, and through business support, I believe that we have the policies in place to make sure that Cambridgeshire and Peterborough grows at a sustainable level, but also is inclusive and levelled up across the whole of the area over the next 4 to 20 years. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, James. Just a follow-up on that. First of all, yes, I do smile every time I go past Kingsdyke. It's great to see, actually, really good. And it's been too long in happening, actually, but it is great to see. You mentioned a point about people who want housing being mute in the system, and that's obviously, I'm going to leap on that as a plug for us, because that's part of what we try and do, which is bring out that voice of and bring out the voice of advocacy for housing. So thank you very much for that. Got a number of questions come in. In particular, there's been a government announcement today that the Oxford Cambridge Arc is going to be a government-led project. And so we've got a question that says, what is your role going to be in the Oxcam Arc, given that the government have said they're going to lead it?
Well, first of all, it's about bloody time. Apologies for swearing, but when I was elected in 2017, the Arc was 10 years away. It's still 10 years away. It hasn't had government leadership. It's been sort of milling around with civil servants sort of pushing it, and no real government leadership at all. So I'm involved in both the economic heartland and Oxcam, as you would expect, and making sure that Cambridgeshire and Peterborough has a vital role in deciding and helping government get the right solutions. It's always difficult because the government view and the local view is often, there's a little bit of an issue there, so we've got to make sure we're working closely together. I think that would be much easier with government backing and government support, and I hope that there's a minister that is put in charge of delivering it. It's a major piece of infrastructure. The important thing to me on East West is if you're just going to build a railway line between Oxford and Cambridge, or in our case it's Bedford, the section, and you're going to dump 10, 15,000 people a day on Cambridge South Station, how are they going to get to the rest of Cambridge and the rest of the economy? And that's of course where the metro is absolutely vital, because getting people from Cambridge South Station to the science parks around Cambridge, getting them into the university in the centre, that's what the metro will do. And of course the two can work very much together, and that's been our aim from the early days of me being involved in this, to make sure that everything about the Arc includes linkages with the metro. I've already had discussions with the senior team there about route Camborne, and we're trying to make sure that there's full and proper consultation on how this scheme enters Cambridge, whether it's through the north or through South Cambridgeshire. So lots to go on, but I welcome that the government are actually going to get actively involved in this, because Otherwise, I think it would have drifted over the next 4 or 5 years.
So a quick question though, do you think the government funding for it will come forwards? Because I know you talked about something within what you said about the fact that within Cambridgeshire we can deliver projects based on the future strength of our economy, and I understand that. One of my concerns about the Oxcam arc is the government are committed to levelling up, and they keep talking about levelling up, but the levelling up agenda is very, very much about levelling up in the north of England. And levelling up elsewhere, and the levelling up that needs to be done in Cambridgeshire, as an example, is almost an afterthought to that. And we're also in a situation where there's less and less money around. So, that says to me that it's money to the north of England that's going to take government priority, and not funding projects like the ARC.
Yeah, I think that there's a danger of that. And of course, if government have offered their support today, I would imagine that's a precursor to there being a funding announcement in the budget. I think that the government have been a bit nervous about their commitment to the ARC and to investment in the north. But of course, the other side to that coin is, Martin, Cambridgeshire and Peterborough pay £5 billion net into UK government every year. Government can't afford that tap to be turned off. So if they don't invest into infrastructure in our area too, our evidence, I mentioned the independent economic review earlier, our evidence from that review is very clear. If we do not improve our infrastructure by 2030, our economy will go backwards. If you're going to lose money out of our economy, that's money you can't spend in the north of England. And it makes perfect sense to say, okay, well, we're going to protect the money makers as well as the money spenders.
Yeah, and the other thing that's quite
fight for the mayors. The mayors have got to fight these. We've got to fight for them.
No, absolutely. And the other thing that links to that, you talked about the CAM and the metro, and it's something that's relevant to a number of our clients and a number of the developers around here is where your ambition is limited. The extent of your ambition for the metro. So, as an example, we hear time and time again, it would be great if the metro could come here. We're hearing from Newmarket, as an example, that they would like to see an extension to the metro heading into Newmarket. Mm-hmm. And it's about, where the extent of your ambition is for the metro. Once you start getting that whole system going, how far do you see it reaching out and stretching out to?
Well, I don't see it stopping being developed in my lifetime. I expect it will continue to grow. Certainly, we'll be announcing in due course that our ambition is to take the metro to Chatteris and to take it to Ramsey and to Peterborough. Peterborough has already done some preliminary. We've already done some preliminary work on the metro there. So linking, we're going to Alconbury, so Alconbury, Ramsey, Peterborough. Chatteris allows us to look at, okay, do we do Chatteris, March, Wisbeach? Is that an option? You mentioned Newmarket. The reason why I didn't put Newmarket in the initial route is because Newmarket has always been a very difficult place to build houses because of the Jockey Club, and this is a growth platform, and that's why Milton Hall was included, because of the county council land there and potential if the Americans were to leave the airbase of growth there. So, but there is an idea for a new town at 6 Mile Bottom, which mentions the metro, and as you would expect, I've spoken to developers and the Jockey Club, but the Jockey Club is very keen to see better links into the racecourses in Newmarket, which is perfectly understandable. So a link into the racecourses in Newmarket directly from Cambridge railway station would see a boost, I think, for the racecourses, the race industry, and for the economy. So I don't see why our ambition should be we'll finish this in 2030 and we'll walk away. I think our ambition should be we will always continually try to grow the network.
Yeah. So I've got another question about the £100K homes. £100 homes would be great. The 100K home is a great idea, but who is subsidising the land value? If the local authority is providing the subsidy, how is that financially sustainable, and how does it help contribute to the growing need for social rented homes? Yeah,
so the land 100K homes are viable as they are seen as social housing. solution. So they can be built on land that is social housing on any development. So that means the land value is obviously radically lower than the normal market price. I don't need to tell you, Martin. I'm sure the guys on the webinar are fully aware of how land is bought and divided up. So that was the initial view. Okay, well, if we can put social rent, why wouldn't we put houses that people can actually buy and control their own destiny and their own future? So that's the first thing. So they can be done. They're being built already. You know, we're building in Fordham, we're building them in Ely, we're building them in Alconbury, in Abingdon, and we're building them in Cambridge. What we've been doing with the developers initially is developer finance. So we're offering through the Combined Authority, part of our housing grant, we took £40 million and created a revolving fund. So we're lending money to developers at a low rate, so that if they would build £100,000 homes, we're lending the money at a low rate to allow developers to bring forward their schemes at a cheaper borrowing rate than they would be able to achieve through the market. So that has allowed us to develop out these schemes in the future. For now, in the future, it's possible that we may look to a grant system. At the moment, housing associations get quite a lot of money, between £35,000 and £60,000 a house, and they're, in my view, not offering value for money in that. I think that they're just over the road from here. They've built a 2-bedroom house. It's £50,000 more than any other, valued at £50,000 more than any other house has been sold in the village before, and they're doing that as shared ownership, which I think is an extraordinary, disappointing price and not value for any individual at all, apart from the housing association. So I think we have to look at whether or not a system has worked, and I don't think the affordable rent system, social housing system, has worked. I think it has cut out an inordinate amount of people who are fairly low paid, but paid well enough to buy their own home, and yet they can't get on the market because of deposit issues, or because they're stuck in high rent value houses. And I'll say it again, you can get a 100k home, and I hope that we will build enough so people can. That's the ambition. Your mortgage is going to be less than social rent. So if you're earning money, you can afford to pay the mortgage on your 100k home and put away at least the same amount again every month. So you've got the opportunity then, with a mortgage history, to go and up your mortgage and buy a new home further down the line. And of course, you will have savings in the bank because you've been able to buy a house for 350 quid a month, whereas your equivalent opportunities in social rent or even in market rent are going to be double that. So this is a real chance for young people and individuals to get on the housing market. And of course, because interest rates are so low, mortgages are lower than rent. That's the reality.
Okay. Just something else that we come up against with anybody we talk to really in Cambridgeshire, which is about local government reorganisation. We keep hearing about local government reorganisation, and we see examples of it happening, and in some cases actually happening very well. Shropshire is a good example where it's being seen by a lot of people to have achieved what it wanted to achieve. And Cambridgeshire's structure is probably more complicated than most. Where do you see that going? Because it is quite clear that something needs to change in Cambridgeshire.
Yeah, sadly, I don't see it going very far in the near future, and I think COVID has probably put pay to that. The white paper that government had put together for local government reform has been sort of put in the long grass for the short term because of COVID. It was supposed to be sort of sorted out last year and wasn't. It is clear we've got too much government in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. There's no doubt about that. We need all the district councils and the county council and the Greater Cambridge Partnership and the Combined Authority and the Police and Crime Commissioner. This is a lot of government. So, Martin, you know me long enough to know that my views on government are lean and mean, and I would certainly be devolving down powers from authorities to allow better service. But those decisions are not going to be made locally in the short term. They're not going to be nationally either. So if there is to be local government reform, I think it may be now, not until just after the next election.
Okay. But is there anything that can be done beneath that? So just as an example, you know, we're seeing already, you know, the local plan for South Cambs and the city being a joint local plan. And I think most people are welcoming that because it's part of the same economy. But could you see something similar being done as, you know, a Cambridgeshire regional spatial strategy, or Cambridgeshire and Peterborough one, as an example? It's similar to what Andy Street's trying to do in Birmingham, to be fair.
Yeah, it's. I mean, spatial strategy, I think, is every mayor's dream, because you're hit by local plans as a mayor. So the job as a mayor is to deliver, you know, spatial strategy, really an overarching ambition for a wide area. Local plans really stick in the mud, stopping that happening. And they're, in my view, a failed and flawed beast anyway. You have to continually update them. They're very expensive. And they are too prescriptive to allow for delivery of infrastructure and world-class housing. And I think they will negatively impact on the ability to bring forward high-quality ecological housing. I think that there's no doubt about it. So spatial strategy is my ambition. It is something that I put into a request into government, the white paper. It might be something we get out of it. I think it would be hugely beneficial if we did. In the short term, you know, I'll be campaigning in this election to get rid of the Greater Cambridge Partnership. It is an utter waste of money and time to have the GCP operating in the same forum, the same area as the combined authority, with a transport authority, yet they are setting agendas that are opposed or get in the way of the combined authority's transport plans, etc. So the Greater Cambridge Partnership is the only city deal that still exists in any combined authority area. Why it does, why civil servants have insisted on it, is a mystery to me, and it's done nothing but create discord and unnecessary waste of money over the course of the past 4 years that I've been involved, and I think since it started, to be honest with you. So that would be one area that I would be campaigning on, and certainly reform that I would like to see early after the next election.
Okay. I've got another question here. Thank you for the update. A very interesting overview. Could the Mayor provide an overview in respect of the proposed A10 improvements?
Yes. So we're working very hard to finally solve this situation. And if I look back to the last century, I used to drive along the A10 to go to college on a daily basis, and it was a horrible, horrible road then. Massive investment into housing in Ely in particular, but also Liverpool going into the Fens, into March and Chatteris, has not improved the A10 whatsoever. And of course, we've now got Waterbeach coming online, 12,000 homes, which again will add to the issue. It's a bit of a conundrum really, because anybody who lives in Cambridge says, oh, you can't dual the A10 because it will mean more people come to Cambridge. What they miss is that half the people who use the A10 are using it to get onto the A14, M11. Not to get into Cambridge. So that's the first thing. But yes, we will be carrying out consultation shortly after the election to choose a route. We've been given support by government to do that. It is something a bit like your King's Dyke route, Martin, that is 20, 25 years overdue. And people who use that road on a daily basis deserve to have something that's better. And that's exactly what we'll be trying to do.
Okay, thank you. And another question, does the Mayor think area action plans are suitable to assist in the delivery of private public infrastructure funding and enable the delivery of new homes?
Do I think they are? I'm not convinced, to be honest with you. I think that they can have an effect, but I think that the problem is that local plans are so restrictive that and planning is so set up at the moment not to build. I think it's a real concern. So you know, my view would be, if you really want to have better ways of delivery of homes, I think spatial strategies are exactly the way forward. Area action plans, they're a bit of a sticky plaster, I think, so that they're not something that I would be campaigning for.
Yeah, I'm from, you know, I've had discussions with a few people about area action plans, and I can see the benefit in some circumstances where you need to deliver something out of a cluster of plots of land and things like that.
Yeah.
But I've never seen them move at the sort of pace that people would like to see them move.
No, and that is the issue, and we all know that the system is an issue. We know the system that we have is, I always get very frustrated, Martin, to everybody. I always get very frustrated. Planners should always be looking at development as, how can we make sure this development happens? So many times it's, how can we make sure this development doesn't? And that's because they're reacting to the perceived opinion of the general public, that the general public don't want housing. But as we mentioned earlier, this point about the silent people who desperately do want housing, those who can't get on the housing market. It's not, it's nothing new here. We were all children once and we're, now adults. And at some stage, you want to get yourself on the housing market. You want to get into a house. So in order to do that, you have to either live in a house that somebody else has lived in and died, or live in a house that nobody has. And as the population grows, as it has done exponentially, and in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, when you create more jobs per year than you build houses, you will always have a housing deficit. So it's up to us to talk to the public with honesty about the realities. It's not about, I've got to build more houses because I just want to build more houses. It's about making sure that people can afford to live here, who want to live here. That's not a controversial position.
No, I think that's right. There is just something that came up in the news earlier on this week that I saw, was somebody calling for a rethink about how the East-West Rail accesses Cambridge. So I know you've put a lot of truck into and a lot of time and effort into the Cambridge South Railway Station, and there has been a call to think about whether you could actually do this differently and bring the East-West Rail actually in and loop it down through Cambridge North. And I just wondered how open you were to different views on that, or do you think the current route is the right one?
I think the most important thing is to over-consult rather than under-consult, Martin. I think that it would be very dangerous to have a preconceived idea of the best route in. The route has always been slightly controversial. The County Council supported the route in from Sandy into South Cambridge, pretty much a straight line to Foxton and in. I thought there was merit in that. A northern route, which was supported by South Cambs and Huntingdonshire District Council, I felt was always going to be slightly more environmentally damaging. The view that you can go up, loop around Histon and Impington and Milton and come back in through Cambridge, I think it needs to be consulted on, to be honest with you. Wherever you build a railway line, there will be negative impacts on some people. And the difference between building a metro and heavy rail is the metro is going to link in more people and benefit more people and be less intrusive than heavy rail. But there's difficulties, certainly. Engineering-wise, of course it can be done. But you're probably going to have to double track the line between Cambridge North and Cambridge South, which means knocking down vast swathes of business buildings in the centre along the route through Cambridge. You've got to remember the King's Cross, King's Lynn line is at capacity already. So just borrowing some of the track from that, I don't think is a viable option. So it'd probably be dual tracking all the way through. But I'm saying probably and possibly. We're only going to know the answer to that if it's properly consulted on. So I'm comfortable, very comfortable with consulting properly and fairly on viable routes into South Cambridge.
Okay. Just something else that I think is worth mentioning, just because I'm sure during the campaign it's one of the things that the Lib Dems are going to major on, which is the environment. And where do you stand on where Cambridge needs to go, and Cambridgeshire, the whole of Cambridgeshire, including Peterborough, as far as the green agenda is concerned?
Yeah, so I think it's really important. That's why I've commissioned Baroness Brown to deliver a climate commission purely focused on the best environmental response for Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. There's an awful lot of noise around the environment, Martin. You'll be fully aware of that, and myriads of reports. But I hadn't got anything that was purely based on what was the best way to deliver the growth that's in our county with the least negative impact onto the environment here. So that was something that I wanted evidence for, and that's something that I've requested, and that's being worked on and will be released next month. There are significant issues. I mean, clearly, the metro is designed to be the greenest possible transport solution, and the idea is taking cars off the road. But equally, where we need to build new roads, A10, etc., we must do so, because clearly roads that are congested create more pollution than roads are not. So that's an issue. And the other thing, we'll all be driving electric cars in 5 years, 10 years time. So by the time some of these roads are built, they're going to be predominantly used by electric cars as well. We mustn't forget the economy of the Fens, and the economy of Cambridgeshire is still heavily centred towards the delivery of vegetables into our major cities and feeding the population. So these things all need to be considered, and sometimes a simple decision, and let me give you an example, re-wetting the Fens to create less carbon. Well, if you were to do that, which villages do you want to flood first? These are questions that need to be answered, and we are very concerned about policies that may well negatively impact on our county, on the heritage of it, and of the people that live here. So we've got to find a way to make sure that the decisions that we make are not only the very best for the environment, but the very best for Cambridgeshire and Peterborough as well. And that's been the request to Baroness Brown and her team. Not an easy answer to give me, but I'm looking forward to the report. We're very, 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 very focused on the most sustainable and ecological solutions for the county.
Okay, I've got another question come in. Actually, it's Wisbech related, and it's just interested in the Wisbech Rail and progress on Wisbech Rail and the Wisbech access strategy, and how the energy from waste proposal in Wisbech potentially fits in with that.
Yeah, so Wisbech Rail is still very much part of our plans. We're about to update the business case. We're working with Network Rail on that. It's clear evidence that we can't deliver Wisbech Rail until Ely North is sorted out. We've managed to get £13 million out of government to bring the next stage of Ely North forward, which is to 2022. And of course, it's extraordinarily important that from 2022 we actually deliver that solution on that bottleneck, and that frees us up to deliver Wisbech Rail. So we're certainly still working on it. We can't put the cart before the horse. We can't deliver Wisbech Rail before Ely North, but we are looking at improvements that we can make to the railway station at March that will enable that we can do now that may enable the easier delivery of Wisbech Rail, and also the potential of shuttling in the short term as well. So we're on that, and we're working up to make sure the business case is always up to date should we be able to press the button on it, and that's where we are. Wisbech access, I know it's been a tricky situation because there's been some conjecture locally about how the best way to spend the money has been. You know, we are the funders, primary funders. It's being delivered in coalition with the county council. I haven't had an update on it in the last few weeks, but I'm looking forward to getting one over the next couple of weeks. So I can't give you any more exact information, but as far as I'm concerned, Wisbech access and the funding of it is in place, and we will continue to develop that. The energy question, I assume that means the incinerator, which I know the MP and local members are actively opposed to. I back their campaign. I'm not a planner, so I don't have a direct say, but I'm fully in support of their campaign not to have the incinerator in the town.
Okay, thanks very much, James, again. So another question, in a post-Brexit world, what will James do to continue to drive Cambridgeshire and Peterborough PLC on the global stage, looking to expand investment in our businesses and universities?
Well, it's interesting. That's a great question, coming at a great time, because I've just been assigned a direct link into the government's international team for business growth, and that direct link is going to work very closely with me as mayor to look for opportunities around the globe to push the Cambridgeshire economy further and further. mentioned the metro. How important is that? Well, we want to raise Cambridgeshire up to the level of San Francisco and Boston and Shanghai, and we see those very much as our international competitors, and we see ourselves on that level. So in order to grow the economy sustainably, we need that link of the metro to do so. But I will be certainly working hand in hand with government in this new world to get out there and get business into the county. We know that businesses that want to invest in certainly in life science and technology, if they're going to come to the UK, they're going to come to Cambridge. They're not going to go anywhere else. The likelihood is they're going to be coming here because this is where they see as the centre. The top 25 companies in the world are based in Cambridge and Cambridgeshire, and we want to enhance that brand and enhance that opportunity. So we're working hand in hand with government. We've got direct links into the ministry, and we will continue to drive forward opportunities for Cambridgeshire and Peterborough.
Okay, just linked to that, I think, is one of the things that it goes back to my time as leader, but as a councillor, and all the work that was done around the city deal, but also before that about learning the lessons from AstraZeneca, is one of the infrastructure was always a major part of that discussion. But the other thing that came out of that is that Cambridge is great at creating new business startups, but it doesn't have enough of a reputation for taking those startups and growing them into big businesses. It has got examples. Arm is a great one, but there's not enough. And what can we do to try and deal with that? Part of it is around infrastructure, because if people can't move to somewhere bigger in Cambridge and upscale in Cambridge, they'll go off to the places you mentioned, Bangalore or wherever.
So obviously it's space. That's the thing. Cambridgeshire is very lucky. It's got an inordinate amount of space. So creating new science parks and new opportunities are key. But there's another thing in there, Martin, which I think is a really good point that you raised. Getting investment in the UK before for startups, life science and tech companies was much harder in the UK than it was in the US because of legislation with regard to the European Union. That gives us a freedom now to change the rules and regulations to allow more flexible investment into startups. And as you said, it's getting businesses from startups to that next stage is the great leap. And if you can get that extra and further investment, and that's where the blockage has previously been. So I will be working with government to try and make sure that there is change in the legislation to allow more flexible ability to invest, for financiers to invest into our successful small startups, because there's no doubt, the evidence is there that you can create world change from small startup in Cambridge, and it's happened before our eyes over the last 30-40 years, and we need to enhance the ability of those companies to do that.
Yeah, I'm going to move on to another side of development. Really, we talk a lot about economic development, we talk a lot about housing development. But actually, one of the other things that's needed, actually across the country, but certainly around Cambridgeshire, is retirement living. And the question is, what can be done to help retirement living developers and operators to deliver on local need against a difficult planning framework?
Gosh, now there's a question that you've asked me that I can't say I've given any consideration at all to. So I really should make sure that I do, because I didn't realise it was such an issue. Clearly, I've said I've got concerns about the planning processes and how they work and how easy it is to develop or how difficult it is to develop. But perhaps, Martin, if you could talk to me offline a bit more about that, I'd be able to understand some of the problems around it. It's not something that's ever been raised with me.
We've got a colleague, Philip Cawthorne, who deals specifically in retirement living across the country. And what, from a personal perspective, what we see is we see lots of innovation sort of nationally. I'm not sure we see enough of that innovation around Cambridgeshire about what retirement living means.
Yeah.
But okay, that's great.
I think just to come back on that, one of the things where we have looked at this is if you develop new towns, you build that retirement living as part of the development of a new town, and create the retirement living around the centre rather than in a block on the edge, or these kinds of things. But that's a different argument to how you would do it within the current planning framework. I'm not cited on that, so I'll have to look at it a bit more.
Yeah. So I mean, you've talked, and I've talked a lot actually, and led you down to talk a lot about the south of the county. We've talked about links to Wisbech, which are really important. What about Peterborough? Where do you see Peterborough in 4 years' time? Obviously, the university is alive. How do you see the Peterborough economy, and as a result of the economy, actually, everything else that goes with it, evolving in the next 4 years?
I think that Peterborough is just about to reach into the most exciting phase of its history, probably since it became a new town. I think the university, or I know the university, is going to be a catalyst for investment into the city itself. The football club want to move their stadium. It's a massive investment there, and that's very exciting. But we're also looking at redeveloping the station quarter in North Westgate. The university is going to be a catalyst for over £300 million of investment into the city centre. And we know that if I look back 30 years, Queensgate was the first shopping centre in the area. Everybody flocked to it. People don't flock to Peterborough to go shopping now, but shopping is changing. So we've invested already this spring. We're putting around £800,000. The city council are putting a couple £100,000 into creating more cafe culture opportunities in the centre of the city. It's going to be changing, and I think with the university being there, you'll see much more leisure in the centre of the city. Investment from the government, £25 million into city centre opportunities. And the other thing that we're looking at, I've asked my team to look at, is the arena is clearly going to go because of the development of the showground, and creating a new theatre, venue, arts centre in the centre of the city itself, I think is something which will be really exciting. We want to see bands and conferences, etc., in Peterborough, but we want people to come into the centre of the city rather than into the showground and then go home. So I think that the next 5-10 years in Peterborough is going to be exceptionally exciting. I can't wait to be part of it. I think the university, as I said, is the catalyst there, and that's what great investment into a city can deliver. We're saying we believe so heavily and strongly in Peterborough, we're going to put a brand new technical university in there. And on the back of that, I think the private sector is going to say, yes, there's real opportunity there. Let's get in.
It's quite anybody that can see what's behind me will know, the sort of music I'm into, and the fact that I'm passionate about music. And it's one of the things we've talked about is being blunt about Peterborough. It struggles as far as its music scene goes. It's got a very, very good scene at pub level, and some fantastic bands that are starting to emerge out of that. But it lacks a venue above the Met Lounge. And one of the conversations we've been having is a student-centered city will start to change that. So I agree with you. I think there's some real excitement and some real potential around where Peterborough goes.
Peterborough is by some margin the biggest city in East Anglia. The bands that play regularly at the Corn Exchange or the Waterfront or UEA, they should be playing in Peterborough. It's bigger. There's 80,000 people more live in Peterborough than live in Norwich or Cambridge. So Peterborough should be attracting those bands. What it needs is the right kind of venue, and of course the right kind of individual to go to see.
If people will keep coming, I'm sorry, I could go on about this forever. I won't, James. Sorry, this is my personal passion. I'm going to give you a few minutes just to sum up by giving you a final question, really, which is where do you see at the end of another 4 years of James Palmer as Conservative Mayor for Cambridgeshire? Where do you see those 4 years ending up?
I think when I was elected in 2017, I was very clear that this project wasn't a 4-year project. It's not an 8-year project either. It's a lifetime project, and ultimately, politics and infrastructure planning and all of the things around it tend to be bad decisions tend to be made because there's always an election around the corner. And I think the opportunity of being a Conservative mayor of Cambridgeshire, and of course I'm at the whim of the public, I think that opportunity in 2017 allowed us to look at Cambridgeshire over a 15-20 year period, not over a 4-year. I hope that the public see that what we've been able to achieve in so far just over 3 years, 3.5 years or so, has been substantial change from a standing start. When I was elected, there was me and 4 members of staff. We've gone from that to spacing the ground, building a brand new university, building a railway station, putting in infrastructure across the country, doubling adult education opportunities. These kind of things are massive leaps forward from where we've been as a county before. But I don't see this journey ending in 2025. This journey doesn't end for Cambridgeshire. So incremental steps towards success, I think, can be measured by what we've achieved so far. But what we've achieved so far is minuscule in the great journey towards creating a county where you are as likely to see an AstraZeneca come to Cambridge as you are to Wisbech. And that ultimately has to be the greatest ambition. Yes, of course, we already have world-level companies in the north of Cambridgeshire and great companies too. But when I see the future companies looking at Cambridgeshire to come to Cambridgeshire to run their businesses, I want to see them in a county that's so well linked they can be anywhere. And that also there is the educational levels, because of our investment into university and education opportunities, that allow them to be confident where they bring their business, there will be the people that work in it as well. So our choices now are not short-termism. They're not, we'll see what we can do for 4 years. They are bold and ambitious, and as bold as ambitious as they were 4 years ago. And ultimately, Cambridgeshire needs a mayor who is going to fight for Cambridgeshire and make sure that despite the levelling up of the government focusing on the north of the county, north of the country, that Cambridgeshire gets its fair share, Cambridgeshire gets its opportunity, because by God, we pay in and we do our share the other way. So it's about time we got our share coming out. And as long as I'm there, I will be making sure that we do that. So I'm excited. I'm as excited now as I was 4 years ago. I've absolutely loved the role. It's been an opportunity that I never expected that I would do. I didn't expect I would go into local politics, let alone be a full-time politician. But I get a massive kick out of delivering projects to improve people's lives, and that's why I'm here. And I will hopefully be able to continue to do that over the next 4 years.
Okay. Well, we've just gone just a tiny bit over our time, but I just want to finish, James, on behalf of everybody that's watching in, that's asked questions and everything else. First of all, thanks for everybody for turning up. I think that's really important, and for the questions. I hope you've got a real good example, a good idea of the ambition that James has got for Cambridgeshire. And I'd like to thank James for his time and for agreeing to take part today. So thank you very much, James.
Thank you, and thanks for everybody for joining. Thank you.